Today we're going to tutorial two poses that have to do with hamstrings. A standing pose, Padahastasana, hands to feet, and a floor pose, Paschimottanasana, stretching pose. Hi everyone, my name is Jimmy Barkan. I've been practicing and teaching hot yoga for over 40 years. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Hit the notification bell, then you get notified when I post a new video. Share it with your friends. Anytime you're enjoying the video, smash that like button. So hamstrings happen to be my favorite stretch of choice. As you can see in this picture, pretty flexible with my hamstrings. In fact, recently we did a hot yoga flow for hamstring. Check out that video after this one and you can practice a hamstring stretch with us. So quick Sanskrit lesson, pada is foot or leg and hast is hands. So Padahastasana, hands to feet pose. Now Paschimottanasana is a different animal altogether, because Paschimottanasana actually means westward facing pose. So when we're doing a pose called standing separate leg stretching, which we tutorialed when we were in Costa Rica last year in this video, the traditional way of practicing yoga is to face east. So when you're doing this posture, you're looking down the other way, you're looking west through your legs. Now when you're doing the posture on the floor, it doesn't make any sense because you're still facing east, but they just happen to nickname Paschimottanasana stretching pose. So that being said, we're going to head over to the studio in Fort Lauderdale with new Barkan teacher Katt. So let's get started. So we're going to look at Padahastasana, which is hands to feet pose, from the back, and the Barkan version is from the front. So let's look at Padahastasana from the back, and this is the traditional version that they do in the Bikram class, and we still do in our class. So with the help of Katt, who's a new Barkan teacher, she's going to turn this way. You're going to bring your arms overhead, palms together, and you're going to come down with straight arms with a straight back. And you can bend your knees a little bit if you need. Bend your knees, if you need, take the pressure off your lower back, hands to the floor, and then we shake it out a little bit, left and right, back and forth. If you don't have a knee issue, you could do a little squat. What that does, it takes the pressure off the lower back. Now she's going to lift your hips back up. The hands come around the backs of the heels, so the little fingers are touching behind you. I want you to bend your knees first as much as you can, so that the feeling is you want to try to get your elbows to touch, but they most likely won't. Most people on the planet will not be able to touch their elbows behind their shins or their calves, but that's the feeling you want to have. Now we have stomach on the thighs, chest to the knees, and a little bit later, the face touches the shins. The fingers are all the way underneath. So at this stage, all you want to think about, pressing your face into your shins as your hips come forward toward the front wall. So this is the level that most people are at in the studio. Their legs aren't quite straight yet, and your only concern, this is what I call the primary thought. I like using primary thoughts. You're going to press your face into your shins as your hips come forward, keeping that grip underneath the heels. My teacher, and you're pulling on the heels. My teacher would always say, pulling is the object of stretching, and that creates the opposite direction. So face into the shins, hips forward. Now let's say your legs are straight, and this is the advanced version. So now the advanced version, here comes Katt. She goes arms overhead, comes down with a flat back. And now because her knees aren't bent, she's going to get her hands around the back of the heel. So if I took her hand this way, bring it out and bring it in. See the grip? The fingers now are not at all underneath the heel. You're cupping the heel from the back. And now we've magically turned around so you can see the grip from the back angle. So if I take her hand again and move it this way, you can see the fingers are inside and the thumbs are outside. And this is something you have to be really careful of if you're using this grip, if you're advanced. The tendency is the hands want to come up a little bit. Make sure that they stay down so that the webbing of your thumb and index finger are still pretty close to the floor. You can almost feel the floor. So now we've magically turned around again. So now that you're in the position, your legs are straight, the arms are behind, your legs are straight, stomach's on the thighs, chest on the knees, face into the shins, and now watch what's going to happen. She's no longer going to bring her chin into her chest and her face into her shins. She's now going to bring her chin up just a little bit, but the chin is still touching the shins. Her shoulders are coming up as her head comes down like a tortoise putting his head out of the shell. And now her head comes to her feet. And the last thing she's going to do is shift the weight forward slightly. So head to feet. That's actually the name of the pose Vishnu Ghosh called it. And now for the final advanced move. And here's what you have to think about in terms of advanced postures, and any advanced postures. And it's no extra movement. Economy of motion. No idiosyncratic motion. So watch Katt. She's going to face that direction. Her arms come over her head. She's going to come down with flat back, straight arms, and right to the pose. No extra movement. That's the advanced version. So now it's Padahastasana from the front. And I do this too because I think it's a great warm-up for Padahastasana from the back. So what we do, we always initiate from the right side. We talked about that in other yoga videos where we call it SURYA yoga. SURYA represents the right side. So she steps out, hip width distance, arms overhead. She comes down with a flat back. And now she's going to bring her hands underneath the front of the foot so that the toes line up with the wrist crease. So now we've magically turned this direction so you can see the side angle. So arms overhead once again. Down she goes into the position. Her feet are hip width apart. Now I'm going to have Katt bend her knees because a lot of people don't have Katt's hamstring flexibility. You're better off getting the hands all the way underneath so the toes line up to the wrist crease with your knees bent, because now what you're doing is securing leverage. If Katt were to bring her hands halfway under, let's say, just like to her fingertips, and now straighten her legs, all she's doing is straightening her legs. But when she brings the hands all the way under, now she's stretching the legs because she has the leverage. Big difference. Now you're in the position, your knees are bent, your toes are at the wrist crease, you're in a nice position. Slowly you begin to straighten your legs 1 centimeter at a time until they're straight. Once the legs are straight, the final position, third eye to the shins. The arms come out. Some yoga styles call this gorilla pose. You can see why. So her weight comes forward at the end. And there it is. That's the final version of Padahastasana from the front. So now we're going to look at a leg stretching posture on the floor, Paschimottanasana, which literally means westward facing, which doesn't make any sense in this pose, but we really nicknamed Paschimottanasana stretching pose. If your hamstrings are tight and your lower back is tight, I want you to bend your knees like Katt. You're going to take your index and middle finger, slide it between the big toe and the one next to it, and grab it like a fist, like a grip. And then slowly from here, you're going to slide the heels out, but this is a straight back. I know we do a lot of rounding back postures, like in this pose, standing head to knee. You're going to watch that pose. That's a rounded back. Here, this is straight. So she slides her legs out, and eventually her legs are straight. And once the legs are straight, the next move, this is only if your legs are straight, the elbows drop down to the floor as you continue to pull back on those toes. If you can get your elbows to the floor, now what I want you to do, we've always done this from long ago and somehow it got lost in translation. Now I'm going to want you to use a washcloth. It's a little trick so you don't slide from the sweat. And just a thin layer. See how she put a thin layer of washcloth over her toes? She's still going to grab the big toe. She's not grabbing the washcloth only. She's still grabbing the big toe. As she pulls on the toe, she's going to now go to the next level. So now we've got the towel over the toes. The legs are straight. Her elbows can touch down. Now the next trick, because we want to give you a tangible goal to get you to the next level, the next centimeter, the next inch. Pull your thumbs back and touch your forehead to your thumbs. Now you got a tangible goal. Now that we can touch our forehead to the thumbs, now we're going to touch the knuckles of the thumbs. So we're going to bend those thumbs in half. If you can get to here, here's the last turbocharged move. She's going to lift her elbows up in the air, pull her hands out of the way, and her head touches the toes. This is head to feet or head to toes pose. See how her elbows are up? And look how nice and flat, once again, it's a flat back, her spine is. And that is Paschimottanasana. So that is our episode for today. Any questions, any struggles you may have, put them in the comments below. I get to all the comments. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Hit the notification bell. You get notified when I post a new video. Share it with your friends. Hit that like button, and I will see you at the next video. Bye, guys.